Let's talk first about London Mayor Sadiq Khan, who should face an opposition mayor, with the aim being to reinvigorate democracy in the capital. That's the view of a new report from a think tank, Restate. It also says the number of London boroughs should be cut by more than half. Let's check in with Simon Kaye, who's the Director of Policy and Research at Restate. Hello, Simon. How are you?
Hello, Jane. I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. So let's talk about this. What would an opposition mayor in London do?
Well, it's an interesting question. So there's a lot of recommendations in our report, and quite a lot of them are to do with strengthening the mayor, the case for making sure the mayor is powerful enough to compete globally, so that London in turn is also powerful enough to compete globally. And if you're going to do that, you also need to bolster the scrutiny and the accountability of the person holding that office and all the machinery that sits below that person. Right now, I think the average Londoner would struggle to name their assembly member for the constituency, a membership representative on the assembly. I think right now, the assembly could probably be fairly characterised as quite an invisible chamber. So there's actually an English way of bolstering and creating a bit of a locus of scrutiny in our system, and that's using an official opposition role. That's true
Right.
in England, of course, in the Westminster Hall. It's also true in Scotland and Wales, and that should probably draw attention in a way that might not encourage people to grab a bowl of popcorn and watch mayoral question time, but it might build a little bit more awareness and that bottom-up scrutiny that the system really needs.
That would be, let's say, if we did go for the leader of the second biggest party in the London Assembly, that would make the Tory Susan Hall then the leader of the opposition. Is that right?
Yes, it would be. Yes, so it'd be the leader of whatever grouping in the assembly is not involved in direct government as mayor.
Right. Okay. So, I mean, is the London Assembly worth anything, or is it little more than I don't know, a kind of talking shop?
Well, I think some people would call it a talking shop. They do important work, but the problem is that a lot of that work is sidelined or too easy to ignore by the public, too easy to ignore by the mayor, too easy to ignore by Westminster as well. One of the strange features of the last few years is there's been a little bit of a surge in devolution across England. They've called it a devolution revolution in central government, but it hasn't extended to London. There's this prevailing current of opinion within Westminster and Whitehall that London's sort of fully baked and done and off the table now and doesn't need to come out again. But we really disagree. It's been 25 years since the GLA was set up, and a lot of the factors that go into its operation are sort of outmoded now and need to be revised.
If I were cynical, which of course I'm not, Simon, I might think that let's say, a right of centre think tank might be quite keen on just clipping the power of Sadiq Khan just slightly. What would you say to that?
Well, I'd start by saying that you're probably right about a right of centre think tank, Jane, but we're not a right of centre think tank. We're straight down the middle and fully politically independent. I think it doesn't really matter what your politics are. You probably want an increasingly powerful figure, and that's what we want, an increasingly powerful mayor to compete globally, to be held strongly to account within that system. That includes political accountability, it includes public accountability from the bottom up, and technical accountability, and all of that's featured in our report.
Where does London get its money from?
London's money, like the whole local system in this country, comes primarily from power from finances that are sent from central government
Right.
outward, and that's one of the things that makes London one of the massive outliers. So if you look at other global cities, places like Paris, it's about 16% of their budget is stuff that's been transferred from central coffers. You look at Tokyo, it's more like 5 or 6%.
Yeah, so where are they getting
So
the rest of their dosh from then?
they have the ability to set and raise their own financial, their own capability to under fiscal devolution to raise money.
Right. And so London could do that too?
We really think London ought to do that. We think the whole country should benefit from a bit more fiscal devolution, because that could be one of the things that really incentivize the kind of policy that will bring about economic growth. We've all been pondering that productivity puzzle for quite a long time now, but we're also in one of the most over-centralized countries in the world. It could be there's a connection between those two facts of low growth and deep over-centralization, because Whitehall doesn't always know what policy will be best arranged to create growth in different parts of the country. London should lead the way in that policy change. And it's quite encouraging that there's starting to be some interest in this coming from central government, starting with the tourism levy.
Right. Yeah, but so remind us, what is going to happen with the tourism levy? Where is that money going to go?
Well, this is all to be decided. The devil's in the detail, as ever with these things, Jane. So there's a consultation going on right now. The question is whether mayoral authorities, strategic authorities like London or like Greater Manchester, will become the home for the revenues that are taken out of the tourism levy, or whether that's going to go to constituent authorities, local authorities, which are the traditional billing authorities in our country. I've got a pretty clear view in my head where I think that should go. It should sit at mayoral level to help enable those strategic economic decisions. But it's still an open question what's going to happen with that policy.
Just a quick message here from a listener who's called Andy. Andy says, if you ever see Sadiq Khan talking to Susan Hall, who's the Tory leader in the London Assembly, he answers no questions and has a contempt for her that, for me, verges on misogyny. It's pointless to have an opposition leader because I think he'd treat them with the same contempt unless they were male. Well, there you go. Simon, any thoughts on that?
Well, my main thought is that the average person has not seen Sadiq Khan interact with Susan Hall because the average person hasn't seen mayoral questions and hasn't tuned in. There's a massive democratic deficit.
Yeah, OK. I mean, I was also struck by the fact that there aren't that many members of the London Assembly, considering how huge the city is and how diverse and how extraordinary and how brilliant, in my opinion. Why only 25 members?
Well, that's the product of the original settlement for the way the Assembly was constructed. It's a combination of list-based members from across the whole capital and constituency members. There are these London Assembly constituencies. No one knows which constituency they're in. No. Most people couldn't name who their Assembly member representative is. We have a new idea in our report, which is that actually it's the borough leaders for London's boroughs who should be put into the Assembly in place of those constituency members to create a connection. Because at the moment, what we have is sort of a two-track system that most people can't puzzle out at all.
So just who would that be exactly? The leader of your local council?
Precisely. So the leader of the borough in which you. So part and parcel of that plan for us is making sure we consolidate the number of boroughs. You'll be aware, Jane, there's a massive process of reorganisation sweeping through the rest of the country right now. The government has set an explicit target. Every local authority should be a unitary, just one tier, and should be about 500,000 people, about 500,000 people. London is weirdly exempt from that. None of the boroughs really match up to that standard. There's a couple of boroughs like Hammersmith and Fulham who barely make it to 200,000 residents. And a lot of Londoners probably look at that and think that's probably a bit wasteful. And that's a system that's been in place for 60 odd years. And most people don't feel much affiliation or connection with their borough. So it's time to take a fresh look at that. But yes, part and parcel of that, you can keep about the same size of London Assembly and bring in the leaders in place of the constituency representatives to create a connection between councils and GLA.
Right, and I guess that would be interesting because then you could properly, if you were concerned about refuse or potholes or something of that nature, you could properly, if you took an interest, you could hold the person actually responsible to account.
Yes, and that accountability would flow up through one track of the system rather than having two different things going on that aren't really compatible with each other, different Lego pieces that don't mesh with each other or puzzle pieces from either side of the board. By putting those things together, you create a single track and you also have new ways to escalate and you force the mayor and the team around the mayor to take the concerns of boroughs much more seriously.
Yeah. Just very briefly, I mean, why do you think Sadiq Khan has been popular? I mean, he keeps winning. He keeps becoming London mayor. Now, it's a democratic vote. People vote for this man. Why do you think they do?
It's a very interesting question. It's not the case that London has been sort of monochrome politically in the past. As you know, we've had Boris Johnson, who's been a Conservative mayor, as well as Labour mayors and an independent mayor in the form of Ken Livingstone originally. So London does have the ability to change politically. I think, and I go out on a slight limb by saying this, Jane, actually, the people running against Sadiq Khan haven't been particularly inspiring in the past, and it'd be interesting to see if he'd have a bit more of a run for his money, or any candidate from any party might, if the quality of candidates improved. A more efficacious and powerful London system would encourage the best people to go for those jobs. OK,
thank you very much. Simon Kaye, Director of Policy and Research at Restate, a think tank.